hotel. It's gonna be a great Noel. It's the Advent Calendar House. Muppets, Batman, Smurfs, and even Garfield's Halloween. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane. Frosty, Rudolph, and a bunch you've probably never seen. It's Mike and pals that come to entertain. Turn the knob and lift the latch for fun and laughs that can't be matched. But just beware the icy patch. It's the Advent Calendar House.
Welcome back to the Advent Calendar House, a podcast that holds time and dates in complete disregard despite the word calendar being in the title of the show. Today it is time to ignore the rules of another long-standing tradition as we travel by baby basket back to 1995 to visit some familiar friends. It's the Rugrats in a Rugrats Passover. I am Slave Baby in charge of getting Reptar cereal every morning, Mike Westfall. And joining me, making what her parents call a mess in the back seat of a minivan because they don't understand her art, please welcome back Sarah Shea. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Mike. Pleased to be here making a mess in the back of your minivan.
I'm so happy you're here.
The audio equivalent of a minivan.
There it is. Yeah, that about sums up this podcast. The audio equivalent of a minivan. That's my new favorite review. And currently stuck in the playpen again because he left his screwdriver in his other diaper, please welcome Zach Goslin. Hey, Zach.
Hi, first time, long time, or whatever. I'm mostly here because there's no Wild Thornberry Sukkot special, so let's do this.
That I know of.
If only.
That aired, at least.
Right. Somewhere on the cutting room floor. But so, Zach, we'll start with you. Besides for tonight, do you have any memory of watching this episode of Rugrats before?
Oh my God, yeah, quite a bit. I mean, actually, I'm not sure that I knew that it aired in 1995. I, originally at least, definitely saw it rerun a bunch of times as a kid. And I don't know if we want to get into it now, but like, I grew up in a really like Jewish town, had a pretty big Jewish population. I'm Jewish. It's one of the reasons why I never felt like, that was like, I didn't really realize that we were such a minority growing up. Because
what would that be like?
Just didn't realize until I learned it. And then until I moved to Oklahoma, and that was a whole different story.
Oh, that
and that was weird. And then like specifically like 3 years ago, I had a Zoom Seder like everybody did, and watched it for the first time in a while with all those friends. One of them suggested we put it on, and I had a very enthusiastic yes for it because it just kind of hit like, oh yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, very foundational text for me.
Nice. Sarah, do you remember the first time you watched this?
Not the first time. Definitely not. Even though it came out in 95, I would have been 13. There's no reason I shouldn't remember the first time I watched it, but I don't. It feels like it was just always there. No, I guess I do remember being excited that they were doing it. I guess so. I do remember being like, a TV show is talking about Passover? Like, are you kidding me? And it's the Rugrats. It's like a cool show. I mean, even though I was technically a teenager, Rugrats was always cool.
Oh, yeah. No, I never shunned Rugrats as I grew older because it kept churning out good episodes. But
yeah, it was always funny. And I don't remember specifically watching it, but I do remember being like, okay, this is officially the best show on television because they acknowledged and single other Jewish holiday besides Hanukkah.
Right. That was another big thing. And they did this first.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That I did not remember.
So I forget whether I watched it the night it aired. I do remember Nickelodeon doing a great deal of promotion for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it first aired April 13th, 1995, which that year was the night before Passover, which was smart because then people could tape it and put it on for the kids later.
Very smart.
Yeah.
Well done. I mean, probably it just happened to work out that way because it was in the normal Rugrats time slot.
Well, this was a legit special. This got primetime airing. Oh, yeah.
It did. I was surprised because in my memory, I'd remembered it being a special. But then when I saw the runtime, I'm like, it's still only like 24 minutes, though.
It's 24 minutes, but usually that era of Rugrats, you had the show split up into 2 different segments. This took up the whole time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and then for sure, because like, I won't make you guys feel old, but like, I might have remembered it in 95, might not have, but definitely it aired at least annually after that, and probably just in the rotation too, in terms of like, regular episodes after that, because all those shows, all those Nick shows got rerun real hard, throughout their lifespan, into like not even realizing that like Rugrats was broken up production wise until much later. So like, yeah, and then it was not a one-time airing. It wasn't like I might have seen one of those orange VHSs of it after the fact, but
oh yeah,
it definitely aired on TV again in times after that. So, not something that they just kind of did as a one-off.
Yeah, and we had it on VHS for sure. I know that for a fact. But as I probably mentioned last time I was on Advent Calendar House, or at least one of the past times I was on, my dad worked in video, so we had everything on video.
Yes. But no, this first time they aired it, they put it in the 8 o'clock slot, so technically this was on Nick at Night, I guess. But in the spring of 1995, that meant I Dream of Jeannie would not be seen that evening.
That's fine.
Which I think you covered, Sarah, on Pilot House, your show.
Yes, my other podcast, Pilot House. I mean, I say my other podcast. It's actually mine. This one I just show up on with disturbing regularity. But my podcast, Pilot House, we did talk about I Dream of Jeannie, which I went on the record saying I thought it was better than Bewitched, even though it technically was just riding Bewitched coattails. So hot take.
I don't disagree with that. I don't think I did at the time. I still don't. But
as far as whimsical blondes making hapless brunette dudes do reaction faces from the 60s, it's pretty good stuff.
Yes. But another way that this episode of Rugrats was indeed different from all other episodes of Rugrats, it was the last new episode of the first wave of their production. New episodes wouldn't return until December of 96 with the Hanukkah special.
Wow.
That I did not know.
Yeah. And then they followed that up with a Mother's Day special in 1997, which that's another great one. Oh my goodness, where Chucky learns about his late mother.
Oh, wow.
That
sounds intense.
It pulls on the heartstrings quite a bit.
And honestly, another holiday that doesn't always get a special in any given TV show, right? Like,
yeah.
Rugrats pulling the deep cuts.
Not in a serious context, really more of a like sitcom classic of, oh, it's Mother's Day and I forgot to blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, every time. No, this one got deep. But this Passover special really marked that end of the first era of Rugrats, though when you go and watch it and look it up, it's considered the finale of the show's 3rd season. So look in season 3, kids. Paramount Plus puts it there, but they're in a different order there than they are on the wikis. I don't know why, but it's season 3, episode 23 on Paramount Plus if you want to watch it there. I also found it hiding on the Internet Archive. Somebody uploaded a 4-hour block of what was called Nick on CBS. In the early 2000s, CBS filled its Saturday morning lineup with just Nickelodeon spillover stuff, including Rugrats in 2003. So that exists.
That is the version that I watched. And guess what? There was a really delightful ad break.
Oh, I don't think I stayed for the ad break, but now I need to go back and look for that.
Oh, yeah. It was Rosie O'Donnell hosting the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. You had a Hooked on Phonics ad.
Really?
Good stuff.
I panicked and watched this at 10 p.m. at the Las Vegas airport about 4 days ago, which was, I'm sure people looked over my shoulder and were confused by that, but whatever.
That's their problem.
We're not recording close to Passover, I will just say.
Nope.
One thing I will say about, so I paid $2 to Amazon to get a streamer of it. And one thing that I will interject with, and not too many times, but they apparently have fun facts as part of the package. Like you can click on a button that gives you facts about the episode. Oh. There are a few that I will bring up as time goes by, because 2 of them are actually pretty interesting.
Oh, is that, because I know that Amazon bought IMDb, so...
Maybe they are, yeah.
It's possible they're getting that from IMDb, because I watched something on Amazon that was on quote unquote IMDb TV, which is now Freevee, I think.
Yeah.
But when we were my roommate and I watched all of Leverage on IMDb TV through Amazon, though, and it would like show you in the like sidebar, it would be like, look at all the trivia, which IMDb trivia, as I'm sure you know, is about 90% absolute nuts.
Oh,
Well, one of them, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't
This
wait.
is almost certainly the same thing.
Yeah, that's probably.
You got like a pop-up video version of this episode.
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually have some fun facts in my notes, but those are from my own brain. That's not from the internet.
Yeah. Last thing I want to do is read the Wikipedia page. Come on here and just like go like, and then, yeah, that's your
That's
job.
my job. I will say the copy that's streaming on Paramount Plus also looks like it was just ripped from a VHS copy. Like it had
Oh, really?
distortion, which I wasn't expecting, but I'm also not complaining.
That's a surprise. I would expect it to them to have like a,
You would
a
think-
quality.
Right, you would think they had the master somewhere.
Zach, did your version look like HD or, you watched it on your phone, so you wouldn't know.
No, I was watching on a laptop, but it was concerningly good quality for a show from the 90s. I mean, that's just not how it's meant to be seen.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of older shows, you watch them and they've been kind of zhuzhed up and you're like, this is unsettling. It should not be like this.
No. Make it look bad again.
Sometimes
Yeah.
like makeup effects from old shows look really,
Oh, no.
like watching original Star Trek episodes that are like 4K now is like, oh, that makeup effect was not meant to be seen in such high definition.
Yeah, I think just up to HD, like even like early 2000 stuff, you see that
Yeah.
where like someone's wearing
Yes.
a wig and you're like, oh, this looks terrible. And you
Yeah.
remember it was, aired over, standard def until, mid 2000 sometime.
Yeah. Like, I guess that's supposed to look like that guy has a gnarly scar, but it just like looks like someone put some oatmeal on his forehead. I don't know what's going on.
We started watching Doctor Who a few years ago because that was just a blind spot in my radar my entire life. So we
Sure.
started watching with the kids, and that first season in 2005 when they brought it back has that same sort of effect where it's just like, oh, this did not age well, but I'm enjoying it.
Just even the new series from
Yeah.
stuff from
Like,
2005 looked bad.
that first
Wow.
couple of seasons, and especially the special effects, because one, it was made for TV,
True.
so they didn't have the budget for it, but just
And TVs in the UK, which they basically are like,
yeah, it was
I don't have
wild,
quality
man.
TVs there.
But
I mean, it was always a cheap show, and I thought that was some of the charm. And then afterwards, as they actually improved the budget, it was just the budget, I think.
Yeah.
there it is. But let's get into a Rugrats Passover.
Yeah.
The first thing we see is an extreme close-up of something crumbling, and I immediately recognized it as matzah being destroyed.
I did have a moment of what am I looking at?
I feel like every episode of Rugrats for a period of time just opened with one of those close-ups. It's just like, and you need to figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was maybe the dividing line that you can kind of tell between the first batch of episodes and the second. That the first batch was, and I mean this in a very like loving way, was uglier, and like, this was very,
Yeah.
very much that.
Yes.
The animation style too changed a lot. Like, especially if you look at really like later episodes or the movies, you compare that with the intro. It looks like so different. It's almost like looking at like original Simpsons episodes versus
Yes.
like.
Exactly.
Well, same studio for that first season.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And I mean, we skipped right over the intro and the theme song, which I think is honestly still unimpeachable. Like perfect.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Perfect introduction. Like the intro introducing all the characters. I can words. With the little like robot cat, which I assume was supposed to represent the fact that Stu is like an inventor.
I think so. I
don't know that you
think
ever see that.
see that again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah.
But he does make other inventions. So.
Yep. So this is an artistic close-up of what we later find out to be Angelica in her car seat making just a giant mess of matzah and borscht in the back of her dad's minivan. She's not even eating them. She's just pouring borscht on one at a time and smashing them.
Yeah. I was wondering what it was. I couldn't see that clearly. I'm like, is she putting like jam on it? And I actually looked up, I read an article that was like fact-checking Rugrats Passover, and it was a bad article. I'm not convinced it was written by a Jewish person.
No.
But it had a still of her with the jar, and I said, oh, it says borscht on the jar.
Yes.
And then below it, the caption was, Angelica pours jam on some matzah. And I'm like, all right, why am I reading this article?
It's right. Wait, that was the screen they did and the caption?
Yeah. It was, the word borscht was right there, and then they wrote jam, so.
Well, there's your first clue.
Like, first off, borscht is not, I mean, they kind of get into it later, like that, you know, where the deity's family is from is like sort of Eastern European, but like I did not grow up with borscht as a Passover thing or really in anything.
I mean, Boris is Russian and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Minka's Lithuanian. I don't know if people eat borscht in Lithuania, but
okay.
I didn't until today. I did look.
Hey.
I was wondering if the town names that they gave were real towns or if they made up towns to avoid officially saying where they were from.
No.
But they used real places.
Okay. So Angelica's parents are oblivious because dad's busy driving and mom is on the phone, which we take for granted now, but it's 1995. Right. The only other people I saw with a cell phone in 95 were in Clueless.
Oh, yeah. Angelica's mom is a very big deal business lady. She is addressing someone on the phone as Your Highness. So you know she's doing big deals. Oh,
yeah. We'll get back to that in a minute. But I want to talk about the voice cast because listening back to the Hanukkah episode you and I did, Sarah, one thing we really didn't touch on was the voice cast. We mentioned Tommy's voice is E.G. Daly, whom at the time I knew from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but that's it. So I want to give the rest of the cast their due this time, starting with the first voice we hear, Angelica's mother, Charlotte. It's Tress MacNeille.
Of course.
Passover, Your Highness, it's a Jewish holiday. Well, it's hard to explain. Actually, I guess it's about freedom. Oh, no, Your Highness, that's not a dig at monarchy.
I'm like mad I didn't recognize that. I mean, I think it's because when I watched the show as a kid, I wasn't listening for recognizable voices. And so when I heard her voice, I went, yes, that's Angelica's mom's voice. But now that I'm hearing it in my head, of course it's Tress MacNeille.
Yeah, like it's one of those things I connected much, much, much later in life. But
that's amazing.
She's come up a few times on the podcast. I think the last time I talked about her, she was some random kid in an episode of Batman the Animated Series.
I bet she's got a lot of IMDb credits or some random kid.
Oh, yeah.
To be clear, I didn't know it was Tress MacNeille. The of course was just like, yeah, of course it is. Like,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
I've listened to the show enough times where it's like she just pops up places. I just missed that one, I guess. Or maybe I don't know if the role changed hands or something. But yeah, I am not surprised to see that she's somewhere in this episode too.
Not at all. So Charlotte is trying to explain Passover over the phone to potential business partner, the Sultan of Brunei. An actual person, I'm not sure which is less likely, the real-life Sultan of Brunei not knowing about Passover or that he's doing business with a woman CEO in the 90s.
Sorry, I'm touching my nose going like, it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. I was really curious. I was like, how is there still a Sultan of Brunei? Was there a Sultan of Brunei in the 90s? Not only is there still a Sultan of Brunei, it's the same guy that Charlotte would have been talking to in 95.
The same guy since the 1960s.
Yeah.
But Brunei, for the unfamiliar, is on the Southeast Asian island of Borneo. They've had the same sultan since the 60s. You know what Brunei doesn't have? Synagogues. So who knows?
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't know. I don't know. I mean, also, the only pictures of that guy on the internet look like they're at least 40 years old. Oh, I was like, this guy's been sultan since the 60s. Unless he became sultan when he was like 14. They are purposefully hiding photos of him now because they don't want people to know how old he is. I don't know.
No, I think that's exactly what's happening.
What are they going to do about it?
I was just going to say, it does seem a little odd that the Sultan of Brunei would be this hands-on, with the business.
Yeah. But he does angrily hang up with Charlotte after she yells at Angelica for throwing borscht-soaked matzah around the car.
Speaking of the borscht, though, this is something that does always annoy me in Hanukkah specials. And it's the things that generally annoy me when people do Judaism on TV, not a lot of them in Rugrats. They're mostly good, but it's why would this couple be bringing matzah or borscht? They would not be bringing those things. Like Minka probably would already have plenty of matzah, or Dee Dee would be bringing it. It's very weird to assign people who are not Jewish to bring specifically Jewish things. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the jarred borscht especially. I know I'm harping on that, but like that feels like, apple pie filling on Thanksgiving, where it's like if you are doing a Friendsgiving or whatever, sure, but like you're going to your grandparents' place, I'm sure they got a recipe.
Yeah.
Right.
Matzah, I will defend as like at least an easy one to pick up. It's in the box and display. I thought you were heading towards like mismatching the holidays or whatever, because Rugrats is good about that. But literally, like this year, I was talking to some friends, and I'm hearing more than previous years about like genteel friends going to Seders just as part of the, I've got Jewish friends that are having a Seder and I'm coming too. And that's great. One of them was like, oh, we're making latkes. And on the one hand, that's great, but also whose idea was that?
I mean, latkes are delicious. I guess there's no reason you can't make them, but it is a little odd.
It's a little mismatched.
It's a little like bringing a pumpkin pie to a 4th of July party. Like it's not that you can't do it. It's just a little weird. Well, with the added thing that latkes have a significance to Hanukkah that they don't have for Passover. Also, those latkes better be made with matzah meal and not flour. Just saying.
I am not going to check on this.
No. Please don't, for your own health.
Yeah. As a Gentile, those are the foods that I associate with those holidays. You mentioned Passover, and it's just like, oh, matzah, that's a part of that. So maybe that's why this seems like something Charlotte was like, well, we got to bring something. What do they have at Passover? Matzah. We got to bring that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
She might have just picked up of her own accord. I honestly would not trust Charlotte to pick up the right kind of matzah, because I don't know. It's hard to tell exactly how observant Boris and Minka are, but there is Passover, not kosher for Passover matzah. It exists.
Really?
For the rest of the year.
Oh, okay. I was about to be like, why? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
For people to eat the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Like, usually there might still be some around on a shelf at the time of Passover, and you just have to be careful. That's not the one.
Right.
Also, they have like flavored ones for funsies. Have like, like everything bagel matzah or whatever.
Ooh.
And a very traditional family would be like, no. We're not bringing that to our Passover Seder.
Yeah,
No,
anything that's not a flesh tone color is like not welcome at any particular Seder I've been to.
Oh, unless you're doing like the fancy shmura matzah, it's always sort of like, it looks like it's made of whole wheat, and then it's like burned. It's got burn spots. I don't know if you've ever been to a Seder that was like, we bought the fancy expensive matzah.
Okay. I have been to one actual Seder. I was around 11, so I only remember bits of it. And I say actual Seder because I also remember learning about it in high school, but A, it was a Catholic high school, and B, it was during the day. So that doesn't count.
No. No, I have heard that there are Christian Seders, like Christian people will put on Seders. And okay. But I wouldn't, if someone told me, oh yeah, I've been to a Seder, and then I found out it was a Christian one, I'd be like, okay, but you haven't been to a real Seder.
No, that was for educational purposes. That doesn't count, but.
Yeah, totally different.
I was at one legit one when I was around 11. I don't remember a lot of details about it, but I pick up bits and pieces. The voice of Angelica is Cheryl Chase.
I don't see why we have to go over there anyway. They're Tommy's grandma and grandpa, not mine.
Who was also a voice on another big Nickelodeon show, Noozles. Do you remember Noozles?
No.
No.
It was like an anime thing that they brought over when Japan got really obsessed with koalas. She was the voice of Pinky, who was kind of a flying koala, and they were from another dimension called Koala Walla Land.
I didn't remember that was what it was called. It's like a pink and a blue koala?
Yep. Yes. So she was the pink one.
Is that the one where the koalas like befriend a human child?
Yes.
Is that the one where the koalas live in like a, okay. Because there's also the show with the koalas like wear clothes and are people.
Right. That's called The Adventures of the Little Koala.
Yeah. I just know it is the one where the theme song says, look up there way up high. Koalas
and
balloons.
balloons.
Yeah.
That does not have a holiday episode, sadly. If it did, I'd be on it.
Tragic.
Clearly.
And also, Cheryl Chase, this one made me laugh. In the movie Addams Family Values, she provided the babbling voice of baby Pubert.
Aw.
So
That is a delightful credit.
it was.
I wanna suddenly find out that this woman has done like baby noises in like 100 different movies. She is to babies what Frank Welker is to animals or something like that.
And E.G. Daly's done quite a few babies besides Rugrats, but
Well, she's not a baby. Don't you dare call Angelica a baby.
well, no, she did Tommy, but
Oh,
yeah, no,
oops.
yeah,
I was
all
getting
good.
them crossed. Thought for a second you were
No.
using some fighting words there.
Oh no. There's a line later in this episode. They draw a line.
Very clear one.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a visual line. I did
No.
notice, like when I guess I'm jumping ahead, but when Tommy takes his hat off and shows that he has no hair, that seems to be what makes him go, "Oh my gosh, you're a baby." But like Chucky has hair.
Chucky's got a full head of hair.
Frequently, other babies are walking around with full heads of hair. It's
Yeah.
not
A lot more of them than usual with the purple hair, too. Yeah. Again, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So one more voice I want to talk about here. Angelica's dad, Drew, is voiced by Michael Bell, another legendary voice actor.
Passover's a very meaningful holiday.
A holiday? Are there presents?
Well, no.
He also voices Chucky's dad, Chaz.
Oh.
But most importantly, he's the voice of Grandpa Boris.
For your information, these are my father's wine glasses. They came all the way from Smolensk.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I would not guess that all three were voiced by the same guy. That's amazing.
Well, again, Michael Bell's been so many voices. We brought him up a bunch in the podcast. I had to look up when was the last time I talked about Michael Bell. It was an episode of Rubik the Amazing Cube, which unfortunately he was doing his best not to sound completely terrible while voicing a Mexican teenage boy. But
Ooh, my.
1982.
Yikes.
No, much less problematic to voice an old Yiddish man.
Yeah. Well, Michael Bell is Jewish.
That's what I was going to ask next is like, that's one of my things that I always ask with when shows do a Jewish episode. Although Rugrats obviously did more than one because Boris and Minka were in, they weren't only in the Hanukkah and the Passover episodes.
No,
right?
that would have been annoying, but yeah, they're very present.
Yeah.
All of the voice actors who need to be Jewish in the series are, from what I could tell.
That is like top tier, like A+ check mark for a Jewish episode of a show.
Absolutely.
Are the Jewish characters actually played by Jews?
Yep. So they're on their way to Boris and Minka's house, but as Angelica points out, they're not even her grandparents. They're Tommy's.
Yeah.
They're Dee Dee's parents, but they invited Drew and his family over to the Seder, which was nice of them.
Yeah, they didn't have apparently any other Jewish friends, so they just invited the main characters of the show.
Yes. How convenient. So Angelica doesn't know anything about the holiday and asks her parents if there are presents. And her mom explains Passover is about something more important than presents. It's about freedom.
Freedom? You mean like when you can do whatever you want and no one can tell you not to?
Well, sort of.
I'm free! I'm free!
You think that Charlotte would know better than to say that to her child?
You would think.
She would know Angelica at least. Well, I know she's not the most present parent, but you think she would know at least enough about her child not to go like, "Yes, honey, no one can tell you what to do." Like Angelica already believes that this is true or should be the case at the very least.
Yeah, and this like Passover is about freedom. I think it's a good quick little lesson for a Nickelodeon show, and it's like technically accurate in a sense.
Right.
But like there's a famous chart that circulates every now and again. That's basically that all Jewish holidays are about four things.
I've seen this.
You guys have seen this?
Oh yeah,
They tried to kill us, we survived. Let's eat, and then trees.
Yeah, just trees are great.
Yeah.
All holidays tick at least one of those boxes.
Definitely was not a holiday. Like as growing up, I was raised where it's like it's about freedom. It's like no, it's about penitence and it's about remembering. It's about this great thing that happened.
Yeah, It's about this could happen again.
It could happen again.
Yeah.
It did and it will.
There's a message of we should appreciate that we are free at the present. There's the reclining at the table and all of that because we're free. But yeah, when I was growing up, definitely the vibe was much more, we're thinking about how much it sucked in the past so we don't forget that this could happen at any time.
Da 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 da. Remember that we suffered.
So also on the way to Boris and Minka's, and also complaining about the lack of presents during Passover, is Stu, a grown adult man.
Yeah, wow. I did not remember Stu being this much of a little... Wait, am I allowed to cuss on this show, or would you prefer not to?
Go for it.
I didn't remember Stu being this much of a little bitch.
Yeah.
I kind of low-key remembered Stu being kind of cranky, but I also kind of remembered him being sort of a wife guy, but clearly not. He is just being openly hostile to his wife's religion and culture.
Yeah, no, he's a big giant man baby in this whole episode because his Passover's boring.
Yeah, and he doesn't learn his lesson by the end.
No.
I was waiting for the moment when he goes, I'm sorry, Dee Dee, you're right. I should have been respectful to your holiday. Nope.
That doesn't happen.
He learns nothing.
Nope.
Deed, are you sure this whole ceremony is really necessary? It's so boring.
Passover isn't boring. It's a very meaningful holiday.
Well, if it's so meaningful, how come there's no presents?
The voice of Stu is Jack Riley, a.k.a. the Country Crock guy.
I don't think I can remember any Country Crock episodes.
I remember this specifically. That
Yep.
I remember. I think that was maybe the first. We're digging into my memory. This might be the first time I recognized a voice across properties. Was that's the same voice as the dad from Rugrats. I got seeing that commercial.
Okay, I will look this up later.
Oh yeah,
it's the exact same voice.
The same voice.
Please, for me, as a podcast fan who always is driven to distraction when people talk about things like this, please drop in a little clip of him talking about Country Crock here.
I got a problem.
Poor baby.
Yeah, watch.
Well, I've got a solution.
Country Crock spreadable sticks.
Yeah, they spread easy, straight from the fridge.
Very spreadable.
Very edible.
New Country Crock spreadable sticks. Spread easy, straight from the fridge.
Beautiful. And I've actually mentioned Jack Riley on the podcast twice. He was the dad in The Christmas Toy.
Oh.
And in the special The Halloween That Almost Wasn't, he was the werewolf.
I don't think I've seen that one. Definitely seen The Christmas Toy.
You need to watch The Halloween That Almost Wasn't. That's the one where Judd Hirsch is Dracula.
What? I was doing a little space work, which is great on a podcast, where I was pretending to make a note without a pen in my hand. But then I got distracted from my space work by the idea of Judd Hirsch playing Dracula.
It's like a top 3 Count Dracula performance for me.
I love Judd Hirsch so much.
It's so good. It's so good. And I've done an episode on it.
Yeah, this episode would be more Jewish if Judd Hirsch was on it.
It would be. And the voices of Dee Dee and Minka is Melanie Chardoff.
Stu, the Passover Seder is a time for Jewish families to come together and retell the history of their people. We've been doing it for thousands of years.
Who I also know, she was the principal from Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Oh, I've never actually seen that. But I'm positive that I have heard her voice in a thing and gone, is that Dee Dee? I'm sure it's happened.
Sure, yeah.
Can't remember what it was, though.
But
yeah, definitely a couple actors out there where they didn't have too many voice roles and just did their voice. And then, they pop up anything else. It's just, and then to IMDb we go.
Yep,
Yeah.
basically. Gonna be here for the next hour.
Or people who have they can do 3 voices and they do them.
But as I mentioned, she, Michael Bell, and E.G. Daly, all Jewish. So Boris, Minka, Dee Dee, and Tommy, all well represented.
Yay. Good job, Rugrats.
Put down your pitchforks, America.
There it is.
And I did see something on the internet about the president of Nickelodeon at the time was Jewish. When this episode first aired, some people complained that Boris and Minka were too caricature-ish.
I saw that.
And the article I read said some head of Nickelodeon, someone at the top of Nickelodeon was like, I am Jewish and I disagree with you. And then later, when another, a comic strip was published somewhere with Boris in it, people were like, again, this is a caricature. but the new president or whatever at the time was not Jewish. And he said, I'm sorry, we will never air this character again. I'm like, was that the solution that we wanted?
No.
That, to be fair, that comic strip was worse. I found it.
Oh, yeah?
The joke is that, have you seen it?
No.
Okay, the joke is, or I'll very quickly recap it. Tommy is being held by Boris. Boris is saying some words in Hebrew, and Jewish, service is being very call and response. The joke is, wow, this is a great story. Everyone knows the words. The problem was the words that Boris was saying were the mourner's Kaddish.
Yeah. It's not.
Explain for me, please.
That's a prayer you say at funerals that I recently butchered at a funeral.
No.
So it just was like, it was a very
if you're doing a cutesy Rugrats joke, that's maybe not the prayer that you use.
Very incongruous to the tone. It was just very odd to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not it could be worse, but it was obviously I don't think a Jewish person made that call. Somebody copied and pasted some Hebrew in there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. But no, from what I could read, the animators and the voice actors were all, and the producers and everybody involved were just like, we modeled Boris and Minka off our grandparents, off of that generation. Seems to be across the board.
Yeah.
I did not find, and as a child, I didn't think that I was excited only that these oh my gosh, my people are being represented on television.
Right.
Like this guy kind of looks like my grandpa,
Okay. Well, and we cut to Boris and Minka's house now, where those two are arguing about which wine glasses to use. Minka wants to use her mother's old set. Boris wants to use his father's old set.
Why do we always have to do things your way, Mr. Big Shot?
Because my way is right, that's why.
Hey!
If you don't do the Seder my way, then I wash my hands of the whole thing.
Better you should wash your father's spotty glass way.
That's it.
But did he wash his hands of the whole thing 3 times? But Seder joke there. Sorry.
I got that one.
Oh, good. Good for you. Good job, Mike. I'm patting your head from across the country.
I got one. Outside the Passover story itself, though, this whole episode is just men throwing fits, though.
It is a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Just grown-ass men not being mad that they're not getting their way.
Yup. So Angelica and her family arrive first, and before they can even get into the door, she's asking her parents for a cookie and is distraught to learn on Passover that they can't eat anything with bread in it.
But she says, cookies don't have bread in them.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was the problem I always had as a child, trying to explain to my friends what I couldn't eat. Because no one ever just explained to me what leavening was when I was a child. They just went, these are the kinds of things that we don't eat. And I was trying to explain to my friends, we can't eat anything that has yeast in it. And they'd be like, well, cookies don't have yeast in them. And I'm like, that's true, but I know we can't eat cookies either. How do I don't know how to explain I don't know. No one ever just straight up tried to explain leavening to me.
I sort of generally crocked it as a chewy, crunchy situation, but then even still yeah, that is not a perfect rule by any means.
No.
It's a squiggly line.
Yeah. Well, and then it gets only more confusing if, I imagine even for, especially for non-Jews, if they talk to different people who have different traditions. Because some people don't eat any grains at all. Some people don't eat beans.
Beans?
Or, there's 2 categories, and I hope no Jewish person is listening to this who's going to be like, wow, you got that wrong. You're a terrible Jew. I was raised Reform. Give me a break. But there's kitniot is it includes beans and rice and some other grains. And then, oh no, the much more common word just jumped out of my brain. Zach.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm even more Reformed than you. I'm so sorry. I did not even go to, we'll get into it. I didn't even go to Hebrew school. We're going to get into, my challenges in terms of my thought. There was some stuff during the ceremony during the Seder ceremony. My God, what have I become? During the Seder that I really related to. We'll get to that. But yeah, I'm not... Again, except for that time I lived in Oklahoma and had to be ambassador of all Jewish people. I'm not up on Hebrew terminology. It's more a culture for me, and I am of no help to you. Sorry.
I hope that while you were saying that whole thing, I would remember chametz.
Chametz. Yeah, that one I know.
Okay.
That one I know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Now, that wasn't me actually being a bad Jew. That was genuinely my brain. Just sometimes you forget a word. Okay. So chametz.
And that word I know. I wasn't a poet, but I know it.
Chametz is leavened things. Kitniot covers a broader thing. Anyway, some people just, I grew up just not eating chametz, but yeah, I've met people who don't eat kitniot either. And I'm like, I'm not going to yuck your yum. But also, that seems like it's going too far. All right, well, I'll stop judging other Jews while I ask not to be judged.
I know the word chametz because I've seen Orthodox Jews on the side of the road nearby trying to get rid of things because they can't even have it in their house.
Oh, yeah. That I remember.
Growing up, we definitely put stuff in the freezer.
Okay, no, they had just like crates of things that they were trying to sell, I guess, to anybody who would have them. So they're on the, it was a big thing.
I remember, I don't even remember where this is from, maybe like a preschool or something, or like school, but like, there was a part of, hey, it's the start of Passover, we're putting all the chametz in a pile and just like, it's going to go away. I don't think it was burnt or anything, but I think it was just like, same sort of like, we got to get rid of it. Got to get rid of it. So that's part of it for some people.
Yeah. We put it in the freezer that was in the garage. So it wasn't in the house.
No,
you know?
Garage doesn't count as a house. If it's not in an air conditioned room, you're good.
Yeah. Sweetie, I live in Seattle. We don't have air conditioned rooms.
Oh, well.
It's not heated. That's the version. Yeah. Tell me you're from Florida without telling me you're from Florida. You know what I'm saying?
Aha!
I just make a string and I put it outside the string and we're good.
There
I think it's if you put a ring of salt around your house, or is that?
Yeah.
Good times.
So Tommy's family arrives next, and Minka tells her daughter that Boris ran away from her. And Stu, instead of being concerned about his wife's father, chuckles to himself, oh, looks like the Seder's off.
I know. Oh, I'm so mad.
But he's bad at whispering, so Dee Dee immediately turns around. The Seder is not off.
Yeah, like...
He tries to redeem himself later by saying, oh, too bad about your father, Dee Dee. No one grinds gefilte fish like Boris.
That, okay, as much as I've exposed myself as lacking some of the depth with like, oh man, I don't know about borscht or whatever. The actual grinding of gefilte fish is insane to me. That stuff comes in a jar. It has always come from a jar. Yeah. I have never even heard of somebody making it themselves.
I have had scratch gefilte fish before.
Go on.
And it's better than the stuff from a jar. But no, growing up, it was always from a jar. In fact, when my mom would serve it, she would have a nice platter with like some lettuce and then the little gefilte fish kind of fillets or whatever, like laid out in a circle. And in the center, a nice china dish full of the jelly from the jar because my grandfather liked to eat the jelly. Nobody else did. My grandfather would be, he's like, it's not the same if you can't have some of the jelly with it.
We always paired it with chopped liver for some reason. I thought that's where you're going. That is so much wilder.
Yeah. Oh, we had chopped liver too, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I wouldn't eat it because I was a picky eater, but no, but the problem with that, I feel that was a little close to dinner time to be just grinding up the fish. And also because it's a cartoon, there was like whole fish.
Yeah.
Like you don't grind up like the bones and the scales and the eyes and stuff. No.
This is the Passover equivalent of a Christmas special, and they're putting up the tree 3 days before. Because, we got to show them doing it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of things in this where my brain went like, no, wrong. And then I went, wrong enough for a kid's cartoon, though. We'll let it go.
It's the freedom thing again of like, that's not, it's fine.
No, they need the visual.
That's a very accurate way that a Gentile might describe it to a child, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
I'll give him that as accurate.
There you go. He says, nobody grinds gefilte fish like Boris, and the mere mention of Boris's name brings poor Minka to tears.
Boris!
Oh, poor Minka with her stockings falling down.
Oh, yeah. That's going to happen a couple more times. But right around here is where Chucky and his dad Chaz arrive. Chaz thanks Dee Dee for inviting them and says,
Well, anyway, it was very nice of you to include Chucky and me in the festivities tonight. We're not really Jewish, you know. Actually, we're not really anything.
Which I think was rather progressive for a 90s cartoon for children.
Yeah, it's sort of delivered like it's a joke. Because it's the end of the sentence. It's like, or the end of the scene.
Right.
It's like, I was like, was that supposed to be a joke? Like, haha, these guys are such nerds that they don't have a religion. I don't know. I was trying to figure out, like, is this a joke or is it just...
It sounded like it was so in passing to me.
The characters are like too cowardly to commit to any sort of single faith.
Yeah.
Could be that too. That's Chaz.
I will say, this is probably the first time I've like watching for this, I affirmatively realized Chucky is not Jewish.
Okay.
Finster to me, like in the same way that like Skeeter codes as African American to a lot of people on Doug. Like,
yeah.
Chucky, Finster, redhead, nervous, anxious, like all of that is like, oh yeah, no, he's supposed to be the Jewish character. I get it. And then no, the main character is Jewish. Very progressive Rugrats. Very progressive.
You know what's funny is that I don't know that I ever thought that Chucky was Jewish, but when Chaz first walked in, and this is the first time I have watched a Rugrats episode since whenever was the last time I was on this show, which has been a few years. But yeah. I had this moment of going, wait, who is Chaz? How is he related to this group?
They're not. They're friends or neighbors or something.
It took a surprisingly long time to look up this information. It was not on the Rugrats, fandom wiki, which it had a lot of other information about him, but not that. He and Stu are childhood friends.
Oh, okay.
Phil and Lil are next door neighbors or something like that. But I did have a moment of going like, okay, Stu and Drew are brothers. Mm-hmm. I was like, is Chaz also a pickle brother? No, their last name is something different. Nope. Wait, who the hell was Chaz married to? Was Chucky's mom? No, just friend of the family.
Yep. Just look, we have kids the same age. Let's do play dates all the time.
Yeah, which totally makes sense. And they were childhood friends, but also like, I never thought about it before, but you really have like a kind of chosen family situation going on.
Yeah, you do.
Although I did note that Phil and Lil and whatever their mom's name is that I'm blanking on, Betty, they were not invited to the Seder.
They were not.
I wonder if it was just because they felt like it was too many characters and they didn't want to have to deal with everybody.
Maybe.
They didn't want to do that door joke 5 more times.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll get there. But
yes, we will.
They knew they were going to have Phil and Lil in the Passover story part, so they were like, "Yeah, we'll just leave them out of them."
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for now, Chucky goes to the living room and play pen with Tommy.
Boy, Tommy, all your grandma and grandpa have his old people toys.
The voice of Chucky is Christine Cavanaugh, who is also well known as another short cartoon redhead with glasses, Dexter.
Oh my God, really?
Same voice.
Again, not something I knew. That one kind of clicks as well. Like, oh yeah, that's kind of the same voice. Yeah. Like obviously one's Russian, but
Right. Even more fun, she was the voice of Babe the Pig.
That I did not know.
Oh my God, that one clicks immediately. Like, I didn't know that, but I'm like, oh yeah.
As soon as you think about it, oh yeah.
Just slightly less nasal.
Right.
Chucky, but slightly less nasal.
And Christine Cavanaugh was also, she had a bit part in Salute Your Shorts. She was Ug's girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
You can't really hear the voice like you can with Babe, but...
I don't remember Ugg ever having a girlfriend, but I believe you.
Ug's girlfriend shows up at one point. Maybe she delivers the mail or something. She has some sort of job that brings her to Camp Anawana, and I don't remember what it is. But I remember they have like an awkward like kissing face with their lips. It's so silly.
All right. Sounds about right.
Yeah. So Chucky's complaining that Tommy's grandparents only have old people toys, but Tommy tells him they have better toys upstairs in the attic.
Classic.
And there's our first babyism.
Classic babyism.
Unfortunately, Tommy does not have his trusty screwdriver to escape the playpen. He left it in his other diaper, which I hope means it got thrown out.
Yeah, don't think about that one too hard, folks.
It's just a gag on I left it in my other pants. Don't go too far with it.
Yeah, no. They don't they're not doing cloth diapers in this show. They're throwing them out.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
No, none of those.
No, you see him throw them out all the time. But to their surprise, Angelica just lets him out of the playpen. And when Tommy asks why she's being so nice, she explains, "Don't you know? Passover is all about freedom. And besides, there's toys in it for me."
Nice to see that Angelica was imbued with the Passover spirit, but also still true to type.
Oh, yeah. Well, back in the dining room, Charlotte is on the phone with her assistant, Jonathan, to try and salvage the Sultan deal. And she tells him when the Sultan accepts, call her on her beeper, and then send the signed contract to her Carfax.
The 90s.
Get it? She's a businesswoman.
Yeah, kids, that used to mean you were rich. Now it means you're old.
Yeah, I mean, having a fax at all. Having a beeper.
Having a beeper, not being a surgeon, yeah. But no, that is the whole suite. That is the cutting edge of that era. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and having Jonathan, who I think appears in like one or two episodes.
He does.
But otherwise he is just the Steiny get me a Danish character.
Yeah. The voice on the phone.
I was thinking the Diane.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Twin Peaks.
No, I got you.
Yep. Well, since Boris is still in parts unknown, Dee Dee appoints Stu to lead the Seder, and Drew tells him to be a man and stop complaining. Interestingly, Stu, Drew, and Chaz are all wearing kippas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember wearing one when I went, but how common is it for a Gentile guest to be offered one?
I think that would depend on the household.
Okay.
How observant the household was, or, somebody might like acquire one and wear it, be like, look, I got one of those little hats.
Oh, no.
I like absolutely believe that some Gentile people would do that to be like, hey, look, I'm doing the thing.
That explains Drew more than it does Chaz. I'll say that.
It's true.
I'll say a lot of the ones I've been to as well are recent, like as an adult, because, mostly I'm not the one putting it on. Like, sometimes there'll just be a couple of them up front and put it on. I certainly don't carry one with me. And if it's a friend of mine who's more conservative, they will have them at the ready. And I think last one I went to this year was pretty much all Jewish, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody just put one on to fit in. It's certainly not offensive. I don't think that's offensive by any means.
Okay.
No. I would think it was kind of funny if someone was like, look, I got one. I'd be like,
that would be weird. Yeah.
You didn't have to, really. It's fine. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like synagogues do traditionally have little cheap, flimsy fabric ones, like in a bin by the door for you to take as you enter. That's very common. I don't know that I've ever seen that at a person's house. Can't remember that ever.
Yeah, it happened to me this year. I think they had I think it was left over from a wedding.
Okay.
So that they had a couple excess.
Oh yeah, I still have one or two that have like somebody's bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah date stamped on the inside.
Oh, nice.
My family wasn't that kind of rich. I didn't get keep out with my name in them.
I also paused here to look at the table, and it looked like all the important pieces to a Seder are there, right down to the extra glass.
Yeah, cup of Elijah. There was a Seder plate.
Yeah, good work.
There wasn't like anything that there oughtn't be, like a Hanukkah or anything like that. I did notice that in that article that I looked at that was like fact checking the episode, it had a screenshot and it commented on the same thing. There was a cup of Elijah. There was a Seder plate. And I was like, okay, look, I wouldn't have noticed this or mentioned it on this podcast, but this person is doing an article. They are going through the trouble, but they also didn't read the word borscht. So I'm not surprised they didn't notice that in that screenshot they shared, the candles on the table have been lit and then blown out, which you would not have.
Oh.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Ceremonial candles for Jewish purposes are burned all the way down. So you generally would not blow them out and then use them again later. Yeah.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. Unless you are, real hard up. I wouldn't judge someone who was like, yeah, I really can't afford candles every week for Shabbat, so I'm just gonna pull them out. I wouldn't judge a person if that was their reason. But I did think like, I don't think Minka would have been putting pre-burnt candles on her Seder table.
Okay.
No self-respecting Jewish grandma would.
Nope.
Take that, Jewish president Nickelodeon, who yada, yada, yada.
But I also was like, that's such a small thing. And like, you can't expect every single one of the animators drawing every cell to, necessarily know each little detail. It's shorthand. If you're drawing candles, you much more expect to draw one with a pre-burnt wick and a little bit of melted wax at the top than a fresh one. That's true. That's just...
Yeah. Right.
I'm not judging them, but I did feel the need to bring it up. So I don't know.
Well, thank you. So now we head up to the attic, which Chucky, of course, finds to be very scary, and his fears are confirmed when a shadowy figure yells, "Hey!" at them, but surprise, it's Grandpa Boris.
This is my favorite Chucky line in the episode.
This place is really scary, Toby. No, it's not, Chucky. It's all in your mind. Well, my mind is a pretty scary place.
And I'm like, buddy, I feel it.
And I felt that too.
Chucky is relatable.
He sure is. But Boris is up here. He didn't run away. He just felt bad about yelling at his wife.
Aww.
So he went upstairs to find her wine glasses, which I guess is the point where I'm supposed to think, aw, see, he's a really sweet guy. But you know what's also sweet? Apologizing to your spouse first and then going to get her wine glasses.
He probably thought it would be a nicer gesture if he should have. Why they put the wine glasses away in the attic, not just like in another room, is a bit. But this is the point of the episode. Everyone needs to end up in the attic, so we'll let it.
You don't get locked in the other room with the nice cabinet.
No,
that's
it goes up in the attic. Makes more sense. Also, we have our first Yiddish alert of the episode. He calls the kids Kinderlach.
Yes,
Kinderlach. Yes. Yeah, Boris accidentally locked himself up in the attic because the attic door doesn't open from the inside. And Angelica immediately goes, "Oh, it won't? Let me see." Slam. And here's the first of a running gag where Boris yells, "Don't close the
door." Classic.
And I immediately thought of another Jewish icon, Sherry Lewis.
Oh. Yeah.
That's how every episode of Lamb Chop's Play Along ended.
Yep. Actually, I just realized the only two Yiddish moments that I caught, at least, are both in this little scene right here, because he calls the kids Kinderlach, and then when Angelica closes the door, he says something that sounded to me like Ach Chazerem?
Ach Chazerem.
Which would mean like, ugh, pigs, which I don't think he was calling the kids pigs. I was really hoping, I hope the other Jewish person in this episode knows more Yiddish than me and caught what that meant. But Zach, you look like you're shaking your head.
No, I'm just happy to be here.
My only guess is that he meant to say chazere, which would be garbage. I've never heard someone use that as an expletive, like on nuts, but it would make more sense than pigs. But I listened to it like 5 times, and there's definitely an M or an N or at the end of that word. But that could have been, is it Michael Bell?
Michael Bell,
voice actor? That could have been Michael Bell just misremembering the word. He might have thrown that in. It might not have been in the script. He might have been, oh, that's what my grandma used to say. Yeah, he might have ad-libbed it. So if anybody knows what he actually said, and it's neither of those things, please let me know.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me of Lamb Chop, by the way, because I was trying to remember other Passover specials. I had this and the Prince of Egypt just in my head in terms of like pop depictions of Passover. Right. Lamb Chop totally did Passover. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We did the Hanukkah episode a few years ago.
Oh, boy, did we. That Hanukkah special is
wild.
It's very special in the sense that it's very long.
I very much remember it. And this is a sense memory from a long time ago. Yes. And go listen to that episode if you want to hear more about it, I guess.
Or listen to, what episode did I tell the follow-up story where I met a guy who was one of the puppeteers? Was that on the Shalom Sesame episode, maybe?
It must have been. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of randomly, while on tour, ended up meeting one of the puppeteers for who worked on that special, among many other credits. He's done so much stuff. And I told him, like, not too long ago, I did a podcast where we talked about it, and I rewatched it for the first time since I was a kid. And boy, it was a lot longer than I remembered it being. And he said, yeah, it felt long while we were working on it.
But have you ever accidentally locked yourself in some room?
A locker, yeah, because this is a JCC camp where I got in a locker and they don't open from the inside.
Oh,
no.
No.
That was pretty brief, but
you don't do it twice usually, right? Like,
yeah, no, not that size. And I don't think I've ever been. Maybe like the classic trope of like, oh no, the freezer, oh no, the basement or whatever. I don't think so. I don't think doors work that way usually.
No, why would you design a door like that?
And if you found out that one of the doors in your house did that, then you might change the doorknob or something like that. So, I mean, Boris or Minka must have done it in the past because he knows that about the door.
Right.
And yet they never fixed it. Although, how many of us have seen something in our house and gone, I should really fix that. And then
all the time.
Years pass by.
So, yeah.
We won't judge Boris too much for not fixing the door.
Nope. Plot device. But well, Angelica tells Boris, you're not missing anything. This Passover is a really dumb holiday. And he says, no, Passover is the greatest holiday of the year. Don't you know the story of Passover? No, she doesn't know. She's not your grandkid.
Yeah. She's not Jewish, Boris.
No.
She's 3 years old.
That's right.
Also,
we forget that. Forget that. But
we do forget that she's supposed to be 3.
Is that canonically?
Yes.
She's not. She's got to be like 3 or 4. Yeah, throughout the series.
She feels older to me. She feels like 5 or 6 to me, but
I don't know. I remember the number 3 for some reason, but
I believe you.
It's what stuck in my head. I think, man, kids look older when you're younger, and then you look back and you're like, that was a 5-year-old.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess she only needs to be older than, she needs to still be young enough that she can understand the babies. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're about to get to the real reason why we're here, the Passover story. But first, we check back on Stu leading the Seder, reading at a very bored voice from the Haggadah, which, if you're unfamiliar, is the script to the whole Seder, including the story of the Exodus, which we are getting to. But I did not realize until this year, getting my notes together for this episode, that it's not just one standard text, and you can make a custom one.
Oh, yeah. There's millions of them out there.
Yeah.
There's like certain key things that are traditionally included, but there is no official correct Haggadah.
I found out this year that the coffee company Maxwell House makes a very popular one.
And they have for many years.
Like 100 years now. Yeah, it's a pretty key part of the business.
Yeah.
As well, and yeah, like I think growing up, maybe this happened a little bit, but definitely the one I was at this year, there was a fair bit of yada yada, because there's like ones where there's whole like sort of dialogues from rabbis going like, oh, maybe this guy says this and this guy says this. There's parts where like they discuss it and how it was passed on, and the quickest you can get through that is like an hour, and people don't always come in realizing that.
Wow.
Yeah, like if you're following along, I'd say easily minimum an hour. Maybe you can disagree with me on that, but like,
there's the extra stuff can vary wildly from Haggadah to Haggadah, and the one that my family used when I was growing up was so old it contained a prayer for Jews in the Soviet Union.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
I mean, we just would always skip over that part. But
okay.
It was like, we hope that Jews in the Soviet Union will soon be able to openly celebrate Passover. And it's like, yeah, it's an old one. So this year, actually, my family used, we actually did it last year as well, a new Haggadah that just came out a year or two ago. You can get it online, and it's like free or suggested donation. You can get it as like an ebook, and it's called A Haggadah of Our Own, and it's designed to be inclusive.
Nice.
All the prayers include 4 different versions: traditional, feminine, humanist, and gender expansive, or the 4 different versions of each prayer, of both the Hebrew and the English translations. And yeah, it just had a lot of stuff. It improved, my family Haggadah growing up talked about the wise child, the wicked child, the different types of children.
I remember that.
You might need to teach the Passover story to. And yeah, mine growing up was like, the wicked child is a little jerk and you should exclude him. It's just like, tell the kid he doesn't belong to the family anymore and kick him out of the house is practically what it said.
Nope. You had your chance, wicked child.
Yeah.
You know, one of the kids is dumb. Pick the dumb kid right now out of the 3 and 4 yet. I would always grow up. I would always go to a Seder with my younger sister and my older cousin. We're like the family unit. And like, yeah, first of 3 of us, the math doesn't work. And then second off, like, oh God, one of us be the idiot.
Yeah, this modern one has a much more like actually actionable approach to how you might teach Passover to different children, you know. Anyway, I highly recommend it if anybody out there is looking for it. A Haggadah of Our Own. Just Google it. You'll be able to find it.
Yeah, well, I'll put that in the show notes. I found a website that had a whole bunch of pop culture ones. There's one based on the show Schitt's Creek. There's a Golden Girls Haggadah. I'm like,
no.
Really?
Mm-hmm. No.
The Carrie child asks... The Samantha child, yeah.
Everyone should have fun, I guess, but also that seems wrong to me.
That's a bit much? Okay.
This feels related to the phenomenon of more of my non-Jewish friends going to Seders. I'm like, oh God, are we commercializing Passover? Oh no.
That seems a little too fun. I mean, it doesn't have to be a depressing holiday, but it is somewhat solemn.
Okay. It's like an ugly Hanukkah sweater.
Don't start.
Yeah.
Don't start.
Right.
Don't start.
No, but Stu is very boredly reading
this green vegetable before us. What does it mean?
Also, if he's leading the thing, is someone else supposed to be asking these questions?
Well, I also did think, like, okay, would they really ask Stu to lead the Seder? I mean, Minka might be old enough to be like, oh, I can't lead it. I'm a woman. But surely Dee Dee would be like, well, since Dad's not here, I'll do it.
That's what I figured.
Maybe she thought that making Stu do it it could have been their intention was she thought, I will force Stu to engage with the Seder by making him lead it. But he's just ruining it for everybody else.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, because that's almost like, you know, until I realized how much of a jerk he was being, like what Stu meant by the Seder's canceled, because you really do need at least one person who knows the deal and who's into it and knows the Hebrew and knows the story and is going enthusiastically through it and going, okay, you say this part or you say this part. Because it's a holiday that needs a leader.
Having a Gentile lead, especially... Although, presumably they've been doing this every year that he's been married to Dee Dee. So he's kind of acting like he's never heard this before. But I would not make a Gentile who even had been to a handful of Seders lead the Seder. That just seems cruel. But I guess it was only the 90s. Then maybe Dee Dee just thought like, well, I can't lead it. I'm a woman. The male head of the household has to do it. So in the absence of my dad, that's my husband. Sure.
But she wants Stu to read with more emotion. It's like a table read, and he should be reading it better.
Yeah.
Exactly my point.
But Chaz takes the opportunity to go check on the kids, a thing no parent does as often as they should on this show.
No.
And now only for a plot device, too.
Right.
Yeah. When they sit down to start the Seder, I think Charlotte asks, where's Angelica? And Drew's like, oh, I don't know, playing with the other kids. And I'm like, why isn't there a kids' table? The kids should be there as well. The kid shouldn't just be like off somewhere in the house. Like they're not going to be sitting at the main table. They're going to be sitting at their own table and maybe have crayons or something to do so they get too distracted. But the kids are supposed to be involved a little bit.
That's what I thought.
Not the babies, but Angelica is old enough to be involved. Although she's not Jewish, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, there's a specific part for kids. I mean, you know, everybody can get involved.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah, and this is the thing that Stu's reading right now.
There's a specific part for children who aren't old to speak yet, even.
Oh, really?
That's one of the children, right?
That's one of the children. The child too young to ask.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Yeah, I did feel like, wait, the kids would be there. And I went, it's a cartoon. Yeah. This is part of Rugrats, is that the kids go off and have adventures and nobody notices that they're gone. This is part of Rugrats. Let it go.
No, this is one of the first times I remember a parent checking on the kids. Chaz is a lot more surprised than we are to find, oh no, my son's missing from the playpen.
Yeah.
It kind of not again.
Although he says not again, yeah. Which classic Rugrats stuff.
Only the, I guess this is episode, 80? It's like, this is like the 70th time it's happened.
Right. So now we're back in the attic, and Boris begins to tell the kids the story of the Egyptians and the Hebrews.
Many thousands of years ago, there lived a people called the Egyptians. They were very powerful and built all kinds of beautiful cities and buildings. But there also lived in Egypt the Jewish people, the Hebrews. At first, they all lived happily together, side by side.
I thought you said this was an exciting story.
It gets better.
And Angelica is not on board until Boris mentions the Pharaoh, who was kind of like a king, he explains. She asks, could this king be maybe a queen instead? Sure, why not? So we finally get to the fake history part of the episode.
Yep.
Where Angelica is playing the part of the Pharaoh, feeding herself grapes on a boat.
Yeah. Having a great time, loving having slaves.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When she passes by a baby in a basket, and it's Tommy who introduces himself.
Hi, I'm Moses. Pleased to meet you. I'm Pharaoh.
Perfectly cast. He needed to be a baby in a basket. He was a baby in a basket. I don't know what else you want.
Boom.
The most accurate part of the story.
Are you familiar with an old Nintendo game called Bible Adventures?
Absolutely not.
Didn't think so.
Know of it. Know it's a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, never heard of it.
It's this unlicensed game where in one of the levels, you control baby Moses' sister, Miriam, who, by the way, absent from this episode because you don't need her. But you have to carry baby Moses in the basket to the end of the level without dropping the baby, which you could accidentally toss him aside, continue with the end of the level, accidentally drop him in the river, and all the game does is good work, but you forgot baby Moses, and that's it.
You did great aside from forgetting the main character of this story.
Right. You just, broke the timeline forever, but let's move on.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah, they cut out a number of characters like Aaron and the Pharaoh's daughter, who's supposed to be the one who actually finds Moses. But, it's pretty traditional when adapting literature to the screen to combine characters. So, it's pretty par for the course.
Yeah. And in this one, it's Pharaoh Angelica who invites Moses aboard her ship. Mm-hmm. No questions asked. To a baby who happens to be floating down the river where she just told the Hebrews to drown their male babies. No, it's fine. Come on, I'll show you around.
Yeah, the idea that the Pharaoh didn't know that Moses was a Hebrew is already like a questionable part of the story. But we're supposed to believe that Angelica doesn't know that the Moses is a baby when he was literally a baby in a basket in a diaper.
Yeah.
The fact that Pharaoh Angelica does not know that quote unquote Moses is a quote unquote baby is like, sure, we'll let it go.
Right. Now she takes him to her palace, which is adorned with multiple statues of sphinxes with Angelica's face.
Yeah.
Damn right.
Classic.
Yep. I can't imagine an Egyptian watching this. I mean, this is layers and layers of cliche already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Also, Boris says, there used to be a people called the Egyptians. And I'm like, I mean, it's still a place.
Got some news for you, buddy.
Yeah.
They're still around.
Yeah.
Not quite like this. Her palace also has a checkerboard tile floor. Look like straight out of the Queen of Hearts, but close enough.
Yeah, man.
I think this depiction of ancient Egypt was probably more informed by like the Liz Taylor Cleopatra than any actual history.
Yes.
Yeah. Plus a little bit of the classic. Oh, they lived in the ruins for good measure of like, yeah, they lived.
Right. Yeah.
There were pyramids. It was all busted up because all weathered.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's how we built them. She takes Moses to see her latest project, and we cut to Chucky putting the finishing touches on his pyramid, but he built it upside down.
Classic Chucky.
And that makes Angelica mad instead of awestruck at Chucky's engineering marvel.
Yeah, honestly, building a pyramid with the big fat end on the ground, whatever, man. Building one with the tiny end on the ground and the fat end up in the air, that is like some David Copperfield shit.
Right.
And I'm just thinking, can't he just tip it over if that's the plan?
Also that.
Yeah.
Be fine. It's just sand.
It's just sand, yeah.
Nope. Just...
What's important is that Chucky makes mistakes. That's one of the gags of the show. So.
Yes. Yep. Both Chucky and Tommy as Moses are wearing diapers and nothing else because Egypt is hot and they're babies.
Mm-hmm.
Babies are standing in for the Hebrew people, for the Israelites here.
Yeah.
Next, she takes Moses into her throne room and gives him an ancient Egyptian reptar bar. And he says, now this is what I call civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Take a shot. Yeah.
I want a reptar bar.
They play it, what, like 90% or 80% true, like, palette swap of the story where, you know, everything is starting a little bit there. Like, everything is, you know, to the story to some extent. And then every now and again, it's just like, there's a joke later we'll get to, but then like, yeah, there's cereal and there's the reptar stuff and there's toys. Like,
right.
Cynthia.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The
Cynthia.
The Pharaoh. Yep. Cynthia with the headdress.
Yes.
Yeah. 2 different Cynthia dolls in this episode.
That's right. Well, here's about where we cut back to the attic where Angelica asks why Moses became Pharaoh's best pal, even though Moses was a baby. I mean, a Hebrew. And as Boris begins to answer her, Chaz opens the attic door and we get Don't close the door. Number 2 of the episode.
Yep.
So now he gets to sit and listen to Boris continue the story as Moses watches the Hebrew people build a new city for Pharaoh, and we see a bunch of babies in diapers pulling around giant stones.
Yeah, I can't remember if this was the point, but at some point when Boris says something about the babies having to be slaves and work for the Pharaoh, Angelica says something like, well, that sounds pretty great. And he goes, well, it was pretty scary at the time, I can tell you. And I don't know if that was just purely meant as a joke, but honestly, telling the story of Passover as if you were there is part of the tradition. So he's actually perfectly in line with the tradition with that little, with that line.
Oh, perfect. I did question that. I'm just like, you're not that old, Boris.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I don't know if this is just a joke about like Boris, like Grandpa's always telling stories like they were there, or like Boris is that old. I was like, it's
Believe
accurate,
me,
though.
I was there.
It's accurate.
Yeah, that absolutely seems like a thing Boris would do.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where we see Phil and Lil. They are pulling a single stone in opposite directions, and they break it in 2 like a couple of super strong Hulk babies.
Yeah, impressive work.
The power of twins.
Yeah, I feel like they're evenly matched. Of course, that's what happens. That's what have to happen.
Sure. Well, they get it from their mom. Have you seen Betty?
Yeah, she's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Now look what you did, Lillian. You did it, Philip.
Phil and Lil are voiced by Kath Soucie. I brought her up a few times. Most recently on Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas, as the enchantress who curses everybody in the castle because their master's a jerk.
Yeah, that name sounds very familiar to me.
She's been in a bunch of stuff, but this might be her most popular thing.
I wonder if I particularly know her from something else. I'm really curious. But
Lola Bunny. She was Lola Bunny in Space Jam.
Well, there you go. I mean,
I've never seen Space Jam. I'm a bad millennial.
Tiny Toons. She was Fifi LaFume.
That also tracks. Yeah, that's sort of like raspy, kind of like throw it, like that kind of voice.
Linka and Captain Planet. Wind.
You know, I'm just glancing at her credits, and she's just been in so many things.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That name might have just stuck out to me for whatever reason.
If there's one thing you learn from this show, it's that every decade has about 5 voice actors.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, she was one of the Bimbettes in the original Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, okay.
That's where I know her from.
That's it. So Phil, Lil, and the other babies are getting ordered around by a bunch of toddlers wearing little headdresses like the pharaohs. I looked that up. They're called nemes.
Fun fact.
And these other toddlers should not be wearing them. That's pharaoh-only headgear.
Oh.
But they do the job here of visually separating the Israelite babies from the Egyptian, a little older toddlers.
Yeah, it's that and that they're like slightly taller.
Just a bit taller. Yeah.
Barely, though. It feels like they forget sometimes. The animators forget that the babies are supposed to be smaller because they're very rarely appreciably smaller than the big kids.
Oh, yeah. Even Moses is wearing one, who asks Chucky, Phil, and Lil why they aren't playing with Pharaoh, and they nervously explain to clueless, privileged Moses that because they're babies, they have to work all day with no naps and no potty breaks.
Yeah, only one bottle a day.
Really?
Inhumane.
Here's when Moses says, well, Pharaoh lets me do whatever I want and I'm a baby, takes off his nemes to reveal his bald head.
What?
Just reveal of all reveals of the I am actually left-handed. Yeah. Terrible. Just the shock of that moment of like, oh, you're bald. You got to be a baby.
Despite the fact that Chucky is there and other babies are wandering around with full heads of hair, but it's fine. Whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, Chucky's the one who makes him put it back on before anybody sees. And just in time, as a particularly pushy toddler literally pushes Chucky and tells the babies to get back to work. And here's where Moses takes a stand and says, hey, you can't treat the babies like that. And when the other kid refuses, Moses pushes him off of Chucky. But as he does, the cloth falls off his head, revealing he's bald as a baby.
Also, he pushed him to the ground.
Yeah.
That's pretty serious business for kids. Yeah. That is an accurate, like, kid version of a slave driver was beating a slave, and so Moses took his whatever whip and then whipped him instead. Like, this is the baby equivalent. Like, I pushed him onto the ground.
Yeah, they toned it down a tiny bit from Moses killed a dude.
Yes. There are a number of areas in the story, you'll notice, where they made it less scary.
Oh, yeah. No, you can't show 6-year-olds like straight up Old Testament stuff. That is just a bad idea.
Yeah.
But it's revealed, hey, you're a baby. I'm telling Pharaoh. But Moses insists, Pharaoh's my friend. She won't stop liking me just because she found out I'm a baby. But the other babies insist, you've got to go. And the drive the point home, the weather just becomes dark and a thunderstorm rolls in and we fade back to Boris's attic at this point. And that's where they cut to commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is the big cliffhanger of like, to keep you hanging on is like, how much trouble is Moses going to be in?
So much trouble that the weather has changed.
Yes.
That's pretty big trouble.
Yes.
That's when I saw Rosie O'Donnell hosting the Kids' Choice Awards.
But Moses didn't know what he was getting into.
What was he getting into?
Big trouble.
Stay tuned. More Rugrats coming up on Nick on CBS.
Power up for Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice 2003.
The only award show where you have control. Kids' Choice! With more stars, music, and way more than!
Join host Rosie O'Donnell for Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards 2003. Tonight at 8 o'clock, 7 Central. The Kids' Choice Awards are sponsored by Burger King, Old El Paso, Pocket Neopets, and Hershey Kisses.
Hey, this is TC.
And this is Jim from The Studio Demands It,
a bi-weekly screenwriting podcast where every episode we conceptualize and craft an entire screenplay based on the demands of one of our listeners acting as a studio.
From hypothetical sequels of popular franchises
to reboots or reimaginings of films that deserve a fresh chance.
To hypothetical films that simply must be brought into existence.
Join the creative process over at studiodemandsit.com. Hope to see you there. See...
Well,
I can't see us.
Hope to hear them there?
Hope to hear us there.
Yep.
Now back to Rugrats, only on Nickelodeon.
But very weirdly, the Paramount Plus copy plays the title card again here. The ba-ba! Like, what? That didn't happen.
I had that as well.
Yeah, I had that too.
Did you?
I think his double episode, like...
Huh.
I thought of it as like a Death of Superman thing where it's like they did, because I don't think I remember seeing the title card at the intro of the episode. And so it was like,
oh, they definitely did.
Okay. But to me, it was like 12 minutes of, build up. And then the big reveal of, yeah, it's a Passover episode.
That would have been a hell of a cold open if that had been the first time they showed the title card.
Oh, wow.
Just in case you didn't realize it, it's a Passover episode.
I gotcha.
And we're back.
We're back in the dining room. Stu's at least trying to sound more enthusiastic, talking about this bitter herb we eat. And Dee Dee corrects him, it's herb. And I believe she's correct.
She is.
In America, it's herb in the UK.
Is it?
Yeah, fun fact.
Dang, all right.
I thought, this seems like a weird thing to quibble about. Surely everybody knows that that's a UK thing, but no, I am proven wrong in this moment.
Yeah, well, Stu has to stop and mansplain back. You know, a lot of people say herb.
He's right, though.
I
honestly thought it was a really silly thing for her to call him out on, but...
I don't know. Just show them fighting more.
More tension.
Yeah. And Drew takes that cue to get up and go check on Angelica, who's now very interested in the story. And we're now at the part where Moses encounters the burning bush. We don't see it. Boris just tells us about it.
No. A lot of yada yada in of that part.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of not saying the word God.
Yeah, probably for the best, because what's the voice of God going to sound like in the Rugrats universe?
Well, sure, but I did think it was a little... I didn't actually notice it with the burning bush part. It just says, Moses saw a burning bush, and the burning bush told him that he had to go back to Egypt to save the other babies. And It's like, okay, true. It's not inaccurate to mention that it wasn't the voice of God, right? But later when he says, then Moses made some plagues happen, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. Right. That's what happened.
I guess I'm not surprised that Nickelodeon was like, let's downplay the God part of the story. It's not like most Christmas specials get into Jesus, but it's also like
True.
Giving Moses the credit is an interesting way to tell the story.
I'm imagining the bush sounding like Reptar's opera singing voice from Reptar on Ice. I'm just a dinosaur.
Why didn't they just get that voice actor?
Yeah.
I am Godtar.
God just should have. Oh, what if God had been Reptar, though?
God should have been Reptar. It's Angelica's
opportunity.
Imagination.
If Angelica's vision, God should have either been Reptar or possibly
Cynthia.
Yeah, that would have been Cynthia would never betray the Pharaoh Angelica, though.
Yeah.
It could have been like one of their parents or something. They could have done something fun with it, I feel like.
They could have.
I don't entirely blame them for trying to downplay the God part of the story.
It happens, but we now cut to Pharaoh receiving a bunch of gifts from visiting ambassadors. We have cupcakes from Ethiopia, we have fortune cookies from China, and the Persian ambassador, speaking of Cynthia, they bring Rockstar Cynthia, complete with light-up revolving stage.
Yeah, I was wondering, I'm almost positive that was the voice actor who did the voice of Susie, being the Ethiopian ambassador.
Hail Pharaoh, we bring you cupcakes to acknowledge your greatness. Excellent.
Might have been. That's Cree Summer. So
okay, yeah. I was like, that sounds like Susie. She wasn't on the show yet, though, right?
I don't think so.
And wrong. She definitely wasn't in this episode. I don't know if she was on the show at some point. Real cow tool sort of joke for me because fortune cookies, China.
Yeah,
kind of makes sense. I know they're Japanese, but there's a line there, and then I was like, "Is Ethiopia known for cupcakes? Is there a line? Is that something?" I don't think it was. I
mean, it's Angelica's vision, so
sure.
She would want to receive treats. Also, she's got baked goods on the brain because she wasn't allowed to have any cookies.
That's it.
Yeah,
I feel like it scans.
There you go. And last but not least, Moses is back with Chucky, who I guess is kind of filling the role of Aaron here, but not really. Tommy's doing all the speaking and the staff throwing.
Yeah.
But he immediately tells Pharaoh,
"Let me guess. You came to beg for forgiveness." "Nope, I came to tell you to let my babies go."
Iconic.
Yeah, I read the exact same thing.
Yeah. That is this episode's a Macababy's Gotta Do It, a Macababy's Gotta Do It.
Yep. And if you don't, something bad is going to happen. He says that a number of times, and they just leave it at that for now.
Mm-hmm.
Pharaoh is not impressed, and we get the old staff transforming into a snake trick.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Yeah. I mean, who's to say he can't make plagues happen if he can turn a cane into a snake?
That's true. That's true. I like, though, that their translation of, in the story, traditionally the Pharaoh then says, "A big deal. I have court magicians who can do tricks like that," and they do a similar trick, turn somebody's staff into a snake.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they have just Pharaoh Angelico. I can do magic too. Take them away. I can make you disappear.
Yeah.
That does seem more Angelica.
It does. I like that line.
She would not want any more snakes than there were already in the room.
No, have them removed. But then Moses again warns Pharaoh, who leans in and says,
Go ahead, make my day.
Without any additional level to that reference, it's just the 90s.
Yeah. Nope. No issue referencing Dirty Harry, but now we get a much more kid-friendly montage of the plagues of Egypt, which means we skip right over the Blood River one.
Yeah. I think he lists 5 of the 10 plagues.
The Amazon fun fact that I got was, for obvious reasons, only half of the 10 plagues are mentioned.
Yes.
For obvious reasons. And so I did the little census of which ones are mentioned, which aren't.
Yep.
If you want to go through them, I have one thing I want to point out about the 4 or 5 that they ran through.
Sure. Well, I have the ones they skip. They skip pestilence, they skip boils, and they skip hail. The others are mentioned, but I don't think they were in order.
They didn't mention the blood, surely.
No blood. So that's, blood, pestilence, boils, hail.
Yeah, death of cattle. Anything that involved blood, death, or gross skin issues was skipped.
Right.
Now, why would they skip hail? That would be...
I don't know.
Later on, she is getting hailed on. It's just not acknowledged as such. Like, as part in the throne room, like, there's some hail hitting her. And just, I think they skipped it. One of them, which Wild Beasts was listed, as far as I'm aware, that's not a plague, just that a bunch of animals showed up.
Isn't it?
I've seen that in other Passover specials. Wild Beasts, I think, is interchangeable with, I think, flies or...
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, that is a good point. Yeah, so I think sometimes it's wild animals or flies, which possibly is due to a debated translation.
Yeah, I know lice gnats is like a translation, debate. But yeah, that one I didn't know actually that was. I couldn't find it as a canonical plague anywhere, so I just figured it was made up because they wanted to have a bunch of tigers run into the throne room. And it's like, this sucks.
Also possible, but
I've definitely run into other references to just wild beasts running around.
Yeah,
fair.
But we also get the frogs. They even throw the locusts in there. It's the locusts that prompts Pharaoh Angelica to consider letting the babies go if Moses calls off all these animals. And he does, but psych! The Pharaoh in the Exodus is very much like Angelica in that he's someone who keeps changing his mind upon realizing, wait a minute, I'm inconvenienced here.
Yeah. How dare.
Another quick check in the attic here, and now Chaz, who remember doesn't know this story, is also quite enthralled. But now Drew opens the door to find them, but of course we get our third, don't close the door.
Yeah. The fact that all of the adults immediately slam the door closed behind them, it's one thing when they have like Angelica being like, oh, it doesn't let me try. Right. Yeah, that's the thing a little kid would do. Even Chaz is a bit of a dope, so him just like slamming the door, okay, but like people just keep closing the door behind them.
Right, yeah. Charlotte does it a few minutes later, but...
Yeah.
Just a parade of people locking their keys in the car.
Yep.
Yeah. But classic comedy rules of threes. Gotta get that third one in. So
absolutely.
Yep.
But
we have to get Charlotte stuck up there so she can say, I wonder if there's a fax up here.
Right. The traditional attic fax.
Yeah.
At your grandparents' house in the 90s.
Yes.
Sure.
But meanwhile, we cut back to Egypt. The babies are packing up to leave when that bully Egyptian toddler from before declares Pharaoh has changed her mind and the babies have to stay. So Moses returns to a now cackling Pharaoh and warns her, if you don't let my babies go by tomorrow night, something really, really bad's going to happen. And now it's time for the final plague, more terrible than all the others. And as Boris explains it, the firstborn of every household would be taken away. Both of them just did air quotes right now. It was beautiful.
In perfect sync, I gotta say. It was like we practiced it.
Yeah. This is the one that even if you don't notice some of the other, like the ducking of references to God or the ducking of like certain, scenes of death and murder. Like this one, they are like bending over backwards, just be like, oh, they're gonna take you away.
Just don't ask what that means. I mean, Angelica's pretty damn scared of it.
Yeah.
Without knowing what that means. I guess to any kid, the idea of being taken away would be scary. But when he first mentions it, I went, oh shoot, yeah, they skipped some of the other plagues, but you can't skip this one.
You can't, no.
It's load bearing to the plot.
Kind of important.
And I was like, how are they going to do this?
They did the best they could, as specifically as you could on Nickelodeon, but...
And honestly, I love the translation of this, because obviously in this version of the story, Angelica has no children. She doesn't have a firstborn. No. But they they must have been writing it and trying to figure out, how do we fit this into baby terms? How do we fit it into what Angelica would be seeing? And when they realized that Angelica is an only child, they were like, this is perfect.
Yes.
I do love the scene where she's like, okay, I don't care. Take away firstborn. I don't even know any firstborns. Wait a minute. And then calls her dad. He's like, hey, daddy. And he's like, oh, hi, Pharaoh, honey. How are you?
Right.
Calls her dad, lest we forget, on a hieroglyphics phone, because of course it's Egypt. You don't use numbers. They use hieroglyphics or everything.
Right.
Yeah. And her dad is just dressed like normal in his house.
It's true. In his 90s dad outfit. True. It is dining room or kitchen or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, hey, honey, how's Egypt?
How's Daddy's little Pharaoh?
Oh, my little Sphinx.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
Daddy, can I ask you a question?
Of course, Pharaoh, honey, anything.
You and Mommy didn't by any chance have any other kids before me that you might have forgotten to mention, did ya?
Of course not, my little Sphinx. You're our first and only child.
I see. Thank you, Daddy. I think I'm in trouble.
Bum, bum, bum.
but great twist to make this work. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Oh, I love this part. I thought that was really fun.
So now we cut to Moses and the babies having their last meal before they leave. Phil and Lil are arguing which one of them was born first.
Also good.
I looked it up. Do you happen to know the answer?
Oh.
That was one of the Amazon fun facts was...
Oh, was it?
Which one's older?
I didn't know there was a canonical answer. Let me think about. They're kind of interchangeable as characters.
They are.
I don't know if you could extrapolate this. I will just tell you.
I'm going to say Lil. I'm going to guess Lil.
That is correct. Yeah. Lil is older by 2 whole minutes, according to the Rugrats wiki.
I based that on the fact that Betty would insist on her girl child coming first. Because she's a feminist.
Yeah, that's probably how it happened. Rugrats Wiki even has everyone's birthdays listed. Phil and Lil were born on March 31st.
Oh, wait.
I'm surprised that there are canonical birthdays for all of them.
They have canonical years on there, and here's where it gets weird and interesting.
You can't have years. No, they stay babies through the whole show. It can't be years.
Well, no, they have years. That
I do not accept.
And the way they handle the reboot that happened recently is they just push the years up 30 years. So we are older than Stu and Dee Dee and everybody in the reboot. And it was just,
oh dear.
Oh no.
Crumbling to dust.
No, I don't like it.
And
I don't like it.
I checked because I think I initially stumbled upon the reboot trying to find this episode. The reboot has not done Passover yet. So I guess I'll be back here in 30 years to...
Hey, all right.
Oh, God. I don't know that I knew there'd been a reboot. I knew about the movies, that they'd done a couple of movies, but I don't think I knew that there was a reboot. Is it airing currently?
It's like a very recent Paramount Plus thing, I believe.
Yeah, I want to say in the last few years, I think it was about. Yeah.
Very recent.
Have they significantly updated the style, like the characters' clothes?
Oh, it's CGI.
Yeah, it's 3D.
I mean that's a character design, though.
No, the character designs are all the same. They're just 3D animated now.
One of the things that I remember hearing about that they cut, because a couple of the jobs are updated and things like that, they fully cut Howard, Phil and Lil's dad. Because
he was barely there.
Well, I think too, and I think it was just canonically, yeah, Betty's a lesbian.
Okay.
I think, or...
I mean, I'm not surprised.
I'm 85% sure that's what they did. If not, it's still the implication.
Howard's entire character was the caricature of the henpecked husband, which is, not great today.
Yeah,
no. They could have updated him and made him just like a soft boy. But making Betty a single mom is also like, I genuinely, until you said his name, had forgotten he existed. So that's fair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I even remember watching him like, oh yeah, they have a dad.
Whoa, I do not like these character designs. Their eyes are very unsettling. I just looked up.
No, they don't. It's like seeing them in the theme park. I'm like, you should not be in 3 dimensions.
Tommy looks the same, but Angelica, they like made the dimensions of her face a little weird, and I don't like it. Mm-mm.
Nor should
you be 6 feet tall.
Should you be 6 feet tall? Yeah, you. Okay.
Yeah, everybody. The clothing is a little updated.
Is it?
Yeah, like it's still. I mean, Chaz still wears a sweater vest and a bow tie.
Okay.
But Charlotte still has her hair in an extremely like brain stretchingly tight ponytail. Yeah. But
okay,
a high pony is very in. So
yeah.
Phil and Love's mom Betty does not still have the woman sign on her shirt.
Oh, she doesn't?
No, in the new show. Yeah. At least based on the first image of her I found on the internet, which, I'm not saying that Google wouldn't show me fan art before real art. That's happened.
Yeah, it's happened to me a few times too. But Phil and Lil arguing about which one of them was born first. It was Lil. Moses breaks up their argument to explain all they have to do is put a big red mark on their door and their house will be passed over.
Big red mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a red mark. What's it made of? It's not important.
Doesn't matter. Crayon.
It's ketchup.
It's ketchup. And Phil helpfully breaks the fourth wall here and says, I guess that's why we call it Passover.
Ron Howard voice. That's the name of the show.
Hey!
And of course, we have another example of Chucky can't do anything right, where he walks in and says,
Hey, Moses, your doorway had some kind of big red smudge on it. But don't worry, I cleaned it up for you.
Yeah, oh no. Moses looks more annoyed than scared for his life.
Right, yeah, it should have been like, oh God, we have to put it up right away, or like 3 of the people in this room are going to get taken away.
Right. Pharaoh also doesn't seem to be too concerned at the moment either. We find her just talking to her Cynthia doll while she colors a big scroll with hieroglyphics.
Coloring outside the lines, just like Angelica.
Oh, of course.
Thinking outside the box.
Yeah. And there's a loud bang on the door. She runs out to the back before this silver fog kind of seeps in.
It's them.
It's them.
Yeah, it's the mist.
It's the mist.
From the John. Is that John Carpenter?
Stephen King did The Fog, I think. So
Stephen King, yeah.
I think
The Fog. You're right. You know what? I might be thinking of The Fog. Though.
Shyamalan did The Mist.
I don't know.
That's what it is. I was thinking of The Fog, though.
Yeah.
That's the one where people get stuck in a grocery store and then there's fog outside, and that's scary.
Yes.
The fog eats you or something. Yeah.
That is what I'm thinking of. Yes.
But she runs all the way to where Moses is hiding out, tells him, fine, you could go, call off this firstborn thing, and they make a deal. And we see the baby exodus, just a huge caravan of babies.
Yep. And I did slightly take issue. I know it's a cartoon. They got to work some jokes in. Also, Chucky has to make a mistake every 5 minutes.
Yep.
But saying that the way that the matzah came to be was that Chucky just forgot to put the yeast in the bread. Right. Part of me is like, no, this is an important part of the story.
Yeah, that one feels they could.
This is religiously significant.
They could have worked that one in.
They could have worked it in.
Yeah.
We got to go now.
Yeah, like, well, you didn't wait for it to rise. Well, we were in a hurry. But the Chucky's line where he holds up his bread and says, but look on the bright side. We just invented matzah. That line was like imprinted on my brain. I'm like, that must have been in the trailer.
Might have been.
Because that line in particular just felt, even more than Let My Babies Go, I was like, I feel like I've heard this particular line 200 times. Like Angelica saying, you have to when you say it in the Hanukkah episode.
Yeah. That line and another one coming up, I definitely remember.
Yeah.
From those commercial promos for this episode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for now, back to the attic where Chaz helpfully interjects, so that's why we eat matzah.
Uncle Moses' dry cracker sunrise, baby.
And Angelica adds, and that's why I can't have cookies, more excitedly than she would in any other context of that sentence.
Yeah, she's glad to at least have an explanation.
Borderline Christian film, sort of like, and he died for my sins? Like, level of it. for matzah. For matzah.
Well, for matzah.
But for matzah.
Made of bread.
Oh.
Well, now we head where, if you've been keeping track, it is now just Stu, Dee Dee, and Minka left in the dining room. And Stu's back to being bored of this again, droning on about this matzah we eat. What is its meaning? Are you still on the questions?
How long did it take them to realize that nobody had come back?
Right, they realize it right now.
Like, oh wait, yeah, people keep leaving and not returning. This is normally what happens in a horror movie.
I am shocked that Stu didn't find any excuse to pause the Seder. Like, oh, when they get back, you know. But also, like, yeah.
Oh, I don't want him to miss anything.
There's the other push there of like, if you don't want to be there, you want to just power through that thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
There's that.
No, here's where they realize, wait a minute, where is everyone?
You think that Stu would have been like, no, we have to find Boris. Let's go look for him. Like,
yeah.
I'll go first.
Right.
You know? Is there a bar nearby he likes to hang out at? Like, I don't know. How do Jewish grandpas do?
Well, back in Egypt, Pharaoh tells her second-in-command kid to bring her some Reptar cereal, but they're all out because the slave baby who was supposed to get the cereal was just set free. And then she asks, would you please tell me what moron set free the Reptar cereal slave? You did. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll just have a glass of goat's milk. Milk slave was also set free, as was the bath slave, and that is it. She's going after those babies.
I was so delighted by this joke, which was definitely one of those, that joke was there for the parents, and I
never noticed it before the air, and go ahead.
Yeah. Mike, did you not notice this joke?
Remind me.
She says, I'll have a nice warm bath. He goes, oh, the bathwater baby was also, the baby who brings the water for your bath was also let go. And she says, you mean I threw out the baby with the bathwater?
Yeah.
Right? I was like, that is so good. It's seamless.
To be fair, this is not the first time I've watched this episode as an adult. This is the first time I caught that joke.
That's delightful.
I didn't write it down for some reason.
It's so good. I was delighted.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
But now she's got to go after those babies who we find have reached an impasse at what Phil calls the ocean.
You know how the ocean, usually there's land just like a few yards away.
Yeah, that ocean near Egypt.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here comes Pharaoh, so Chucky and Phil beg Moses to do something quick. And before Moses can even think of what to do, Minka, Dee Dee, and Stu find everyone in the attic. And all the adults erupt in chatter as they try to explain all at once what they're all doing up there. And Angelica does her best animal from the Muppet Show with quiet. I want to hear the end of the story. So Boris tells everyone to sit down, tells us Moses had to do something, and we cut to the other iconic scene of this episode as Moses walks up to the edge of the water, mutters,
I hope this works.
Raises his staff, and the sea parts for the babies to cross.
You simply gotta have that. You simply gotta have the seas parting. That is like,
can't skip it.
That's like
it's
what
the
top
big party
3 bits of the story in terms of just like visual spectacle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. And it's not super scary, especially when you don't acknowledge the part where the Egyptians that followed behind were drowned. Don't acknowledge that part.
They kind of do. We'll get to that.
Sort of, yeah.
Oh, I thought they pointedly were like, she's fine by showing her talking underwater.
Yeah, well, and you see her later. She's okay. We see her floating in the water telling Cynthia, this is all your fault, before a shark chomps Cynthia right out of Angelica's grip. And they just leave it at that.
Yeah, all of those river sharks.
Yeah.
In terms of fact checking, I did look this one up, and there aren't sharks in the Nile, but there are sharks in the Red Sea.
Oh, there you go.
So, hey, again with the accuracy, Rugrats. Good job.
That is impressive. I really expected that one to just be, it was just a fun gag, you know. You know, sharks do love to eat plastic, though, notoriously.
Famously.
Absolutely.
That's why I keep throwing it in there.
Yeah, we're helping them. Sharks thrive on microplastics, you guys. It's science.
And that's where all the sharks went. So Boris wraps things up. This is why we have a Seder every year, to celebrate how Moses led the Hebrews to freedom. And Angelica remarks, "Wow, what a great holiday." She feels bad for Pharaoh, though.
Of course she does. I do love that when Minka says, like, okay, well, now let's go back downstairs and finish the Seder. Boris says, like, I just told the story. That's the most important part. Let's eat.
But as soon as they all get up, a gust of wind blows the door shut.
Classic comedy rule of sixes.
Yes.
I was thinking, like, surely when he's like, all right, everybody sit down so we can finish the story. I'm like, please, someone just put a chair or something.
Nope. Now they're all stuck in the attic. So Boris tells everyone to sit down and he'll tell them another Passover story. And Chaz asks about how the Hebrews wandered in the desert for 40 years before they reached the Promised Land? No. About how Boris's Uncle Simon and Aunt Reva met for the first time at the Seder of Pincus the Tailor.
Beautiful.
Love it.
And for a wonderful, like, bit of, again, accuracy, like Jews actually made this moment. The last shot is like a book, pages of a book flipping closed and showing the end on the last page. And the book is going in the correct direction.
Oh yeah.
I didn't notice that part.
Mm-hmm.
I was too busy. Like, does it end with a page that says the end?
Well, not Haggadah generally, no, but this story does.
Okay,
but like
right,
this is such a classic, you know, a fairy tale thing of like fairy tale movies and cartoons. It's like you show a book flipping closed and the end, but the end is on the opposite side as it would be for an English book. So
they show the back, right?
I don't know how well it would have read if they ended on a screen on a page in the middle of the text that just says, "You may now eat dinner."
Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy the meal. And then there's like the Viacom and like 5 more parts of it, because that's not the end of the Seder.
No, yeah. You do have to do the Viacom, but it's fine. They're just gonna stay up there indefinitely.
Well,
that's how the series ends.
Oh man, can you imagine if that was one? Because there's a few examples out there of TV shows that ended a season on a bit of a cliffhanger and then didn't get another season. Like, I think Alf ended with like the FBI coming to get Alf.
Yep.
And they're like outside the house with guns drawn, and then they didn't get another season, and that's the end of Alf.
Yeah. Well,
the Rugrats ends with everyone, and they're still in the attic to this day.
If they didn't make the second batch episodes, that's how it would have ended.
That's how it would have ended.
I guess for a few years, right? Wasn't it? How long was it? Like at least a year, right?
At least a year.
Yeah.
And then it was the Hanukkah special, and then the Mother's Day special, and then mid-1997, they kind of ramped things up because Nickelodeon realized, hey, Rugrats is still doing well. We should make more.
It hadn't done so well. And we never would have found out if they ever got out of that attic.
I'm explaining it as Charlotte has a cell phone.
She is shown talking on her phone in that last scene.
Yep.
That's a good point.
So no one had to jump out the window. Everything's fine.
She called Jonathan and he came and rescued them.
Yep.
I'm just imagining like one of those like Christmas special, like special guest pads that just is like, and the Sultan of Brunei
as himself.
Good times.
But that's it for the Rugrats' first big holiday special, and I thought it held up very nicely.
Oh, absolutely classic. Aside from the very big disappointment of finding out that Stu is trying to suppress his wife's culture and religion, other than that, pretty delightful.
Yeah.
As one of very few like Passover specials that exist, and certainly probably one of 2 or 3 that exist for children, I mean, it's kind of got to be it's kind of got to hold up well, and luckily it does.
Yeah, I mean, aside from standalone movies intended for just like released by Jewish production companies to be sold directly to Jewish people, like what other Passover specials were there on like regular television? I don't even know if the Sherry Lewis one was to direct to video like the Hanukkah one, or if it was aired like on TV.
I found something called It's Passover Grover, which is a Sesame Street thing, but I've never seen it.
Oh.
So
I've never heard of that.
When we talked about Shalom Sesame, they kind of rebooted it in either the late 90s or the early 2000s, and they included Grover as sort of the Gentile voice. And there's an episode called It's Passover Grover.
So that doesn't count because Shalom Sesame was for Jewish audiences.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there are any other mainstream Passover episodes of
I can't
television.
think of any. I remember seeing this one that was clay animated, but that was definitely made for a Jewish audience because they go through all the songs. I forget the one song, but it's sort of like a round robin thing where they talk about a cat did this and something else, and there's a goat.
Oh, God, good, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all in Hebrew, this part. So I had no idea what's happening. I'm just like, oh, I see. They're singing a song and they're going back and forth.
Just a fun traditional song has nothing. Even the song is not about the Passover story in any way.
Oh, let's throw this in here.
Yeah.
It's part of it. It is part of it. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. It is. It has been sung at Seder's for a very long time. I don't know when it originated, but it's been around for a long time, but it's definitely not like this it doesn't actually relate to the story appreciably.
Yeah.
The Angel of Death makes appearance in the song. I guess that's the biggest connection.
That's it.
And then I remember watching Prince of Egypt as a kid, which is a movie for sure, but it is like a PG one. So in terms of just media for kids.
Yeah, that was a mainstream release.
Yeah, meant for mass audiences.
Those two. Yeah. 10 Commandments, I guess, but
not intended for kids, though.
No, not intended for kids. But Rugrats, Prince of Egypt, and that's it. But thank you both for joining me in this little escape.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I was delighted to be brought back to talk about something other than Hanukkah. After my 3 Hanukkah appearances.
That's right. Well, if people want to give you the gift of Rockstar Cynthia complete with light-up revolving stage, where can they find you on the internet, Zach?
I am at Zach Goslin on Twitter. I'm also at @N_they_stay_there on Twitter. That's an anonymous sports account. But if you've made it this far into the episode and you know that account, congratulations, you know who I am now. I don't have a podcast or anything, but one request would be to call Delta customer service and waste their time because they owe me money that they're not going to pay me.
Do that.
You can cut that if you want.
Delta has screwed me over enough times that I also support.
I'm fine with that.
This is the other day, so I'm salty about it.
Wasting Delta's time at all times.
There you go. Well, Sarah, where can we find you?
I am still on Twitter. I will go down with this ship at the Sarah Shay, SHAY, not the Irish way. And you can also find me at sarahshay.com, as all of the stuff about me is there. I am a musician, and so you can get my music and stuff there. If you like music that's sometimes funny. If you thought that I was funny during this episode, and if you did, God bless you. But you can get more of that on Twitter and in my music.
Yes, please give them a visit. Those links are in the show notes of this episode, and all of my show notes are at adventcalendar.house. And that's where you can find wherever I happen to still be hanging out on the socials, whenever you happen to be listening to this. Thank you again for listening. Our next episode falls on a Scrooge Sunday. Watch out, because here it comes. Until then, for Sarah and Zach, live from my miraculously freestanding upside-down pyramid, this is Mike Westfall reminding you to mind the icy patch and tell your partner you're sorry and you love them first before you storm off and lock yourself in the attic. Thanks. Next time on the Advent Calendar House.